Welcome back to the channel. Today's journey is going to take us to the Paw Paw Tunnel near Paw Paw, West Virginia. This is an abandoned tunnel along the C&O Canal. Inside of here we'll see some bats, we'll see some different waterfalls, we'll hike above the tunnel trail and take an overlook at the Potomac River, and also explore one of the abandoned locks along the C&O Canal. So as always, if you enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe. So from the parking lot to the tunnel entrance here, it's about a quarter-mile walk along the C&O Canal. It's on completely flat ground. I visited here in March of 2024. You can see they still had the front of the tunnel boarded up. They do that during the winter time. They usually take that boarding off once the weather starts to warm up, probably around May or June. They only board up one side of the tunnel, which is the first entrance here, closest to the parking lot. The other end of the tunnel is not boarded up. So we'll start walking inside. I did make a mistake when filming this. I filmed it in 60 frames per second. And unfortunately, that's along the same frequency of the flashlight that I took along here. It's an LED flashlight, so you're going to see some kind of flashing and lines, everything from the light. Unfortunately, I did that. Lesson learned for the next time that I use a flashlight. Film it in 30 frames per second instead of 60 to avoid kind of the lines and the flash you see there. I visited here right after a lot of rain, so you'll see the inside of the tunnel is pretty wet. I highly recommend taking a flashlight along. The towpath along here is pretty uneven, and there's some potholes along the way. And if you go out for range, you definitely want to wear boots because it does get pretty wet the further inside the tunnel you go. So inside here I did encounter a few bats, and we'll see one of those here very shortly. All of this is free, and there is the first bat that I encountered hanging down from the ceiling there. I'm sure there's more than that one, and I did see another one further along. So this entire park is free. The C&O Canal itself is free, which is nice. So the Paw Paw Tunnel itself is located at milepost 155 along the C&O Canal. Although it is named after the town of Paw Paw, it's actually located just across the border in Maryland, along Route 51. The whole reason why this tunnel was built was to bypass a 6-mile stretch of the Potomac River that has a lot of bends, horseshoe-shaped bends in it. So that would cut down a lot of travel time when the canal was used by boats back in the 1800s. The tunnel itself is 3,118 foot long. And as you'll see here, I walked through it in about 15 minutes or so. The tunnel itself was built with more than 6 million bricks, and as we get further up here, you'll see some parts where some of the bricks are missing, and you can see just how thick the layers of brick are in the tunnel. So they began construction on this tunnel in 1836, and they were expecting it to be built in 2 years at a cost of $33,500. However, the project was a lot more complicated than they initially expected, and it didn't open until 1850, more than a decade behind schedule. So the construction was delayed a lot just because of the difficulty of work and diseases and violence that broke out in the migrant camps that constructed the tunnel. By the time it was completed, it took around $600,000 to build the tunnel, which is a lot more than the initial $33,500 that they initially expected it to cost, which almost bankrupted the C&O Canal company. So the tunnel was used by canal boats along the C&O Canal until 1924. So this tunnel was open from 1850 to 1924. So the towpath that I'm working on right now was actually used by horses and mules, and the mules would actually walk along this and pull the canal boats inside the tunnel. So since the inside was so narrow, only one boat could go through in each direction. So they'd have to wait for one boat to cross before the other one went inside. And there is our second bat that we encountered inside the tunnel, or at least that I saw. I'm sure there was a lot more bats than just two in there. So there's also a 2-mile trail that goes over top of the tunnel. In this video, I didn't walk over the entire 2-mile trail. I did walk up maybe about a half mile of it up to a viewpoint. But if you do take the 2-mile trail that goes over the tunnel itself, it connects back into the C&O Canal. But they have informational markers along the way where you can see the remains of where an old schoolhouse was and where some of the camps were, and also where some of the debris is piled up that they took out of the mountain itself to make the tunnel. If you want to skip ahead at all, there are timestamps in the description of the video to see some of the other things, such as waterfalls and the view from the tunnel trail. Over there you can see some of the areas that they've patched over time inside the tunnel. And also, this is one of the holes. You can look inside. You can see just how thick the layer of brick, how many rows of brick there are that constructed this tunnel. Where this little weep hole is here, where some of the rainwater is coming through. Like I said, when I was here, it was after a lot of rain had fallen in the area. So these are the Paw Paw Tunnel Falls. They usually only appear after a lot of rain. If you visit here in the summertime, these are usually either a trickle or there's no falls at all. But if you visit here in the wintertime, lots of times these falls are running on this end of the tunnel. So you can see where they've added some some chain link grading over the side of the rock face there. It's because they've had several rock slides on this end of the tunnel in probably the past 7 or 8 years. This area of the tunnel was actually closed for a fair amount of time in 2019, 2020, 2021 due to several rock slides that happened. And in fact, this entire boardwalk is completely new because as we get down a little further, I'll show you where the rock slide was. It actually destroyed part of the boardwalk. So you can see a lot of the reinforcing rods and concrete that they've put along the rock on the right side of the video there to try to hold the mountain together to keep it from collapsing in on the canal. A lot of that work was done in 2019. The first rock slide that I can remember happened in 2013, and this part was closed for about 4 months while they cleared debris and did some of the reinforcing then, but that didn't last too long. So they had a pretty major project in 2019 when a huge amount of the rock broke away, and it broke away actually on the left side of the canal and fell in the canal and crushed this portion of the boardwalk. So for about a year or two, all of this was closed while they did a pretty in-depth scaling project where they tried to reinforce the rock, remove loose rock, and also clean up all the boulders that had fallen down into the canal and on the boardwalk. They spent around $750,000 to clear the debris and reinforce the side of the mountain. In the summertime, lots of times you'll see water snakes down inside here. Since it was near winter, they're all in hibernation. There weren't any in there. You'll also see a lot of fish in there in the summer. This is the portion that all broke away. The side of the mountain, there used to be a lot more to it, and you can see where they've put in a lot of rebar to reinforce this part of the mountain too. But this is a big portion that broke away in 2019. So this is where the one of the first rock slides occurred back in 2013 and closed the trail for 4 months. You can see they put up a fence there to try to hold that part back. If you walk further down off the boardwalk, further down on the C&O Canal here, if you come here again after a lot of rain, you'll see a lot more waterfalls. This is only maybe a few hundred feet further down from where the boardwalk ends. You'll come across a lot more runoff from the mountain and some small waterfalls. So if you do elect to take the tunnel trail, this is where it dumps you out at on the other side. I wish I would have walked over to where this stream comes out of. It actually comes straight out of the side of the mountain. But this is the other side of the Tunnel Hill Trail. It's only maybe an eighth of a mile from the other entrance of the tunnel. So if you walk maybe another quarter of a mile past that side of the Tunnel Hill Trail, you'll come across one of the locks of the C&O Canal. This one is Lock 66. You can kind of see just how narrow this lock is. It gives you an idea of just how small the canal boats were that went up and down here that transported goods from Cumberland, Maryland down to Washington, D.C. You know, this lock is only maybe about 8 feet wide, so the canal boats were not that big. If you travel along the C&O Canal, you'll come across quite a few of these locks, and several of them have lock houses next to them. This one did not, but a lot of them have lock houses where the person would live at and operate the locks 24 hours a day whenever a boat was coming along. Someone was always stationed here because it was all operated manually. I have no idea what that contraption is, but I'm sure it had something to do with opening and closing the doors of the locks. So I thought this was pretty neat. You can see where they chiseled into the rock, so they could place the hardware to open and close the lock doors. Of course, that hardware is long gone, but where they chiseled in the area for the hardware to set is still there. I thought that was pretty neat. So here we are. I walked all the way back through the tunnel. Instead of taking the tunnel trail hill back over top, I just walked back through again. I didn't videotape walking back through, but I'm gonna walk about a half mile up the tunnel hill trail here just to get some views over the Potomac River, and you'll be able to see the town of Paw Paw in the distance. It is pretty steep, especially in the beginning. You can see there where it says you are here. There's a couple of really really narrow and close together switchbacks, because that gives you an idea how quick and how steep it goes up. I've done the 2-mile trip before, just not the day I was there this time. If you do go up this trail, I would recommend going up and over the trail first and then coming back through the tunnel, because especially in the summertime, because you're going to get pretty hot going up the mountain here, and then it's nice to finish the trail off in a nice cool tunnel going back towards the parking lot. I mean, just to give you an idea how steep this is here in the beginning, I'm going to take like maybe 15 to 20 steps up, and I'm going to look over to the left here, and you'll see I'm already up higher than the top of the tunnel. So, like 15 steps I've gone up, 25 feet or so. So it's pretty steep. So now I've made it up to the top of the second switchback. You'll see there's another trail there. If you do decide to take a bike, this trail right here does lead down to the C&O Canal, so it's not as steep. And if you take a bike over the top, they recommend taking that and not the switchbacks that I just took there. So right now I've probably gone maybe an eighth to a quarter mile up this trail. You can see off in the distance there that railroad bridge. That bridge is no longer in service. Instead now there's a tunnel that the train uses to go through that mountain. Sometimes you can actually, when you're going through the town of Paw Paw, there's a bridge on Route 51 that um, goes over the train tracks. If you look to your left and right, sometimes you can catch the train going through the tunnel of that mountain there, since that bridge has been decommissioned and isn't used anymore. There's also another train bridge that's no longer in use down near the parking lot. We'll see that one near the end of the video. So if you do walk up this trail and you just want to take in the viewpoint, it's about a half mile up to these two informational signs here, and this is going to be your best overlook along this trail, looking down at the Potomac River and the town of Paw Paw up there in the distance. You'll usually see a lot of birds flying around up here. I didn't see any bald eagles or anything when I was up here today. There was just some hawks flying around, some buzzards and vultures and ravens. But sometimes you can catch bald eagles flying along the Potomac River. Here's an informational sign talking about how the town of Paw Paw got its name from the Paw Paw fruit. Again, if you do come up here for the viewpoint and you see this sign, this is going to be your best view along the tunnel trail. And here's another marker talking about the construction of the tunnel. If you do continue along the 2-mile trail, there's a lot more informational markers talking about things like the school that was up on top of the mountain, the people that lived in the camps there, and stuff like that. But yeah, you can see down there some of the birds circling around. Also, coming here in the winter, you know, you got some of the best views because, you know, obviously there's no leaves on the trees then. So before I end the video here, I did want to highlight the parking area and the campground that's here. It's a very large parking lot. I mean, it could probably hold, you know, 30 cars or so. In the summertime, it does get kind of busy here. Lots of times you'll see Boy Scouts camping over in the camp area over there. You see, it's pretty primitive camping. We'll get a closer look at it here in a minute. But here is the parking lot. It's pretty expansive, holds a lot of cars. I was here on a Monday, so there was only like 5 or 6. I got some of the informational signs here that you can read. There's also another one near the entrance of the tunnel. I did try to call some of these mobile tour numbers. Cell service is pretty spotty in this area. I have AT&T. It said I had, you know, 3 or 4 bars, but when I called the number, I couldn't connect to the cell tower to actually listen to anything. So your cell service may vary depending on your provider. Like I said, I had AT&T. It said I had service, but I couldn't make a call. I know people that got Verizon. They have absolutely no signal up there. But you saw there in the campground, they're pretty basic. They got a fire pit, place to barbecue, picnic table. I'm not sure what the fees are to camp there, but I know some of that is on the C&O Canal website. This is one of the lock houses that I talked about. Obviously, it's abandoned, but they have tried to keep it intact a little bit, and through all the years. I know if you go on the C&O Canal website, there are some lock houses that have been partially restored, and you can actually rent and live in them. Well, I say live in them. You can rent them as a vacation rental, you know, for like a weekend or a week. This one obviously has not been upkept enough to rent. At the parking lot and the campground, you can walk down towards the Potomac River. Since it had rained so much, the river was up kind of high. In the summertime, when it's a little drier, you can walk further out and get a better view of this bridge. But I went down as far as I could towards the water. We'll get another view here in a second of the bridge. It is, again, it is abandoned. The train doesn't go over that bridge anymore. But that's about it for this video. I'm going to wrap things up. Again, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll have some more videos coming out in the near future. Thanks.